Welcome to the SBP Podcast, the voice of mobile film. You're listening to episode 61, and I'm your host, Susie Botello. Ross Perkins received the Best Feature Film Award at the International Mobile Film Festival in San Diego for his film, Madhouse. He attended with his producer, Kimberly Hart. Ross came from Sydney in Australia, and I would like to add he had no expectation of winning. But still, Madhouse took home a trophy for Best Feature Mobile Film from San Diego. Now, if you're a mobile filmmaker thinking that it would be great to submit it to our film festival, make an effort to attend, because even if you think you may not win, you just might. It's not really about the winning, to be honest. It's about getting your film out there to be screened in film festivals, being a part of Q&A panels, meeting other filmmakers, and of course, in our case, we are in San Diego. It's a great place to visit. I mean, supposedly, we are America's finest city. But in the end, receiving an award is pretty awesome. Ross Perkins' film, Madhouse, shares a tough story to tell with some amazing acting performances. It's a lost footage type film about a home invasion involving meth addicts and a family. The film was based on a true story, and it's less gruesome than the events that this story is actually based on. Ross is our guest in this episode of the SBP Podcast, and he shares more details about the film. He also shares some advice for mobile filmmakers and a bit about his experience making his first film as an actor. I want to give a shout out to our partners at Free Vision in LA. Free Vision was at the film festival in April and brought their new gimbals so that all attendees could get their hands on them. Check them out. Go to their online store at globalgimbals.com and enter promo code SUSY, S-U-S-Y, when you check out, and you'll get a 10% discount off your total purchase. I want to thank you, our listeners, for being a part of this podcast. And you are a part of it. Every interview and every discussion, every question I ask is with you in mind. I hope you find our podcast inspiring and entertaining. And if you're enjoying this, if you're enjoying listening to our podcast, then please share it with your friends and colleagues. And then one last thank you to the sponsors of the Film Festival for 2019, Red Giant, Sort and Circuitry Studios with Uncharted Regions, Film Convert, Black Box Global, Hall Age Podcast, Star Wars Steampunk Universe, Indiana Filmmakers Network, and Grip and Shoot. We really appreciate you. Now, are you guys ready? Let's go talk to Ross Perkins, shall we? Hey, everybody. Welcome to the SBP Podcast, the voice of mobile film. I am here holding a cup of tea and celebrating with our friend Ross Perkins from Madhouse, who won the Best Feature Film, Mobile Feature Film at the 2019 International Mobile Film Festival here in San Diego. Do I sound like a commercial, Ross?
No, it sounds perfect.
Oh, perfect is good. So I'd like to welcome you to, or present you, Ross Perkins. Say hi, Ross.
Hi, everyone. How you doing?
Everybody answer back at once.
Yeah.
So I wanted to share, we had episode 45, talked a lot in depth with Ross. This is before either one of us even knew that he had a winning film. There were a couple of films competing head-to-head against each other in this competition for the feature film competition. And Ross actually won. And I do want to mention that you brought Kimberly Hart, who's your producer, to the film festival also.
Yeah, no, we wouldn't miss it for the world.
I know, and I want you to share that a little bit, because it's a big deal that just one of you came, but two of you, that's epic,
Yeah, well, Kim was really instrumental in putting the whole thing together. She was my producer, partner, production designer, and I couldn't have done any of it without her. So to celebrate it with her was wonderful.
And the fact that she was willing to make that effort, because you guys came from Sydney, from Australia, which is only, it's not like you're right next door.
No, that's right. So not every day we get these sort of opportunities, and the fact that it was received overseas, that was incredible. A wonderful honor to know that it crosses, because it's very Australian, the story. So to see people on the other side of the world get it, that was wonderful. So yeah, we wouldn't miss it for the world.
Yeah, speaking about the story a little bit, why don't you share with our listeners who know nothing about it, a little bit about Madhouse and what that was about.
So it was based loosely on a true story that happened in America, about a real life home invasion that was horrific. And I thought I didn't want to tell that exact story. So I've taken liberties with it. But I did also want to transplant it to Australia, and then also make a independent film, so with little to no money, and thought that I would set it all in the house, structure it like a home invasion film, use the iPhone to keep the cost down, keep the crew minimal, and then go somewhere different in the third act, take it outside the house. And one of the beauties of that is you get instant sort of production values when you're shooting in a giant house. And pulling resources was sort of more of my take. But I'm really proud of the result. I'm happy with how it played. I'm thrilled that it won. And so, yeah, no, we're very happy.
So one of the things that our listeners might want to know, this was the first film that you've ever, well, I don't know. Is it the first one that you've ever written, or the first one you've ever directed, or both?
Both.
Both. So there you go.
Yeah.
Because you come from the theater. I've been speaking with a number of filmmakers, actually, who are using smartphones to make films, and they're stepping literally from the stage to the film industry by using this form. It seems like this is a really good segue platform for them. And share a little bit about your history, and where, what inspired you or what motivated you to make a film with your phone.
Well, the big one would probably be I've always loved acting. That's always been my first love. And then I studied at university, and I was very lucky. I had wonderful, supportive teachers who taught me not just the acting component, but they taught me about writing, directing, all the different kinds of acting. So they taught me that, and they were really, really encouraging the whole way through. And then in terms of Australia, like, the industry here is so small that you don't get many opportunities. And I personally believe that you've got to create your own. And a mobile phone, surprisingly, really allows you that. It allows you to be able to go out there and shoot, do things on your own. So I found the two are actually hand in hand.
And then, of course, you had quite a number of, most of the time you hear about, we had this huge crew. And this wasn't like a Viking film, but you had a lot of a lot of actors in your film, right?
Yeah, a lot of actors, a lot of friends that came to bat for me, which were wonderful, and crew as well. So and Kim, so everyone was all came to help, and I didn't have to do too much convincing.
Now, why is that? Because they just trusted you? I mean, what was was their attitude more like, well, if it doesn't work, that's okay. We had a ball. We had fun.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'd like to think that that it's good friends to me, to be honest.
Yeah.
So that it's good people that wanted to help their friend in any way, and they know how passionate I am about the filmmaking and acting and all that stuff. So, and also provide opportunities for them. The people I cast were people that I knew were great actors and people who I'd want to work with again. So to give them a chance to do what they do and well, because one of the things with acting is you don't really get to pick your material. So it was nice for them to play around.
Yeah, it's really great advice that you're giving there, and I do as well, and several others also give that to whether they're working in theater or in film to actors. And you've also worked in film. We don't want to underestimate you or understate that, I should say. But we it's great advice to say to an actor, don't wait. Don't sit around and wait for someone to cast you in a film. I mean, you're just as capable of coming up with a great story idea and cast yourself in that, right?
Yeah. And I think if you can write, then you should write. And if you can find a way to do it, and if you really are passionate, you'll find a way, whether it's an iPhone or a GoPro or anything else, you'll find a way to be able to do it.
Yeah, and also, of course, obviously, another thing we don't want to understate is that if you've got good friends and integrity coupled with that as a friend, not so in other words, they trusted you because time is, especially in this industry, it's important, but they obviously trusted you because you've got some integrity and they believe in you. They believe that you're not I don't know how to say that word without, saying a bad word, but, half baked, person who just does things halfway. I don't know how else.
Yeah. Well, I do love it. Like, I love movies. I watch probably a movie a day. And I love acting, and I eat up filmmaking. So I think it's contagious. They all seem to want to be a part of it, which is wonderful.
Yeah, actually, when you said contagious, that's actually very true. Every film festival that I have, people walk away. People that, not the filmmakers, but just regular people who come, they walk away and they're, before it ends, they start asking questions like, and you probably got that at our film festival where people were asking you, how did you do this and how did you do that, and outside of the Q&A sessions that you did, because people get inspired. They're watching films and they're watching this entire experience, and they would like to have that experience themselves. And they've got this camera right there with them. It's not like they've got a giant, you're using a red cam, right? And they have no access to that. This is a smartphone. You still have to be able to, construct a story, but I think we know more because, like you said, you watch a film a day. Well, your parents probably watched a lot of films growing up, and their parents did too.
They didn't. No, my parents. What did they watch? The news.
They've never watched a movie?
Well, yeah, my dad would watch the wrestling on a Sunday.
Yeah. So if you went to them and said, "Hey, do you know that movie Indiana Jones?" For just to pick an example, they would look at me and say, "I've never seen any movies ever."
They're not. My dad's favorite movie is Con Air. I'll put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to prove a point that it's part of our genes. You know, that there's really almost no human being alive. Our listeners are probably going, "What are you getting to, Susie?" And that's my point. There are probably no humans alive right now that have never watched, you know, a movie of some sort or a television show that's a story in the visual video film medium, right? And so because of that, once we start playing, like, for example, transitions, right, between scenes, they mean and they evoke different feelings and different perceptions, right? So what was it like in your film? Because you acted, and I remember from your last podcast, you were saying that you guys were passing the camera, the iPhone around to film. So everybody really in the end sort of was the camera person, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that was the idea. I wanted to look like a piece of evidence. So to have the junkies film each other. And on set, it was I had it preconceived, but it was as simple as just telling the actors where to point it. And that took the workload off. Also limited the number of crew that was required. I didn't need a cameraman if the actors are filming each other.
How many did you have? I mean, obviously you had a skeleton crew, but how many did you have and what were their positions?
I had a first AD, Mitch Wright, and then I had a second AD, Kate Heffernan, and then I had Kim doing managing the set. So she was working with the actors' costumes and maintaining the set as well for continuity. And then that was kind of it. That was the main principal crew.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. Because we're not talking about a short film, guys. We're talking about a film that was an hour and 23 minutes long. Were you filming every single day for a certain period of time, or did you pick up and go sometimes and then, go back to it?
Well, it all kind of started when I had the idea, first of all, and I'm the youngest of 6 and very fortunate to have grown up in a nice big house for 6 kids. And my parents went away. They told me they were going away for 3 months.
A parent's biggest mistake is to tell their kids they're going away.
So it's sort of like a scene out of Risky Business. I decided to use their time away and the vacant house to film the movie. So Kim and I went in there and took reference photos of everything that's in their house. And then once they went away, we moved everything out and then brought in all this new stuff in and redesigned certain rooms of the house. So we didn't use every room of the house. And rooms that I grew up with became dressing rooms and, equipment rooms and stuff like that. So that was a bit surreal. So the whole house became this giant film set. And I knew that I wanted to have 2 weeks to shoot the house stuff, which is the bulk of the film.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to have another week to put everything back again from the reference photos. So that was at the forefront of my mind, to do the house stuff first while we could. And then once that was done, I shot the first act in the beginning, and then I took a break. I heard Woody Allen does it. He shoots half a movie and then he stops filming and then he edits to see what he needs and what he doesn't need. So that was one reason. And the other reason was I wanted my character to look a bit malnourished.
We call it strung out.
Yeah, strung out. So I took I think 2 or maybe 1 month break to do the third act, and I just jumped on a treadmill pretty much, and exercised bike, and ate one meal a day, which is really irresponsible. And then got ready to do the third act, and I think I did the third act, and we all did it in about maybe 3 days. 3 days, and by the end of it, the last shot of the film is me alone in one room, and I thought that was a nice way to end it. Actually, the shoot, and then there's bits of pickups, and that was mostly like photographs and stuff. But yeah, that was the shoot.
Wow!
And in total, I think it was 3 months.
So did you shoot, how out of order did you shoot, as far as, because you said the third act and that is broken up in the film visually as well?
Yes. Yeah, it is. Yeah. So it was pretty broken up. I mean, in most days were, in fact. There was things kind of in the house. There were things before the giant party scene where things get really trashed. So in the house, it was everything before the party scene and everything after the party scene. That was sort of how we loosely structured that.
And we we should tell, because I just think that's actually pretty funny, the story about the party scene, because it is just, you're going, wow, how did they make, because the party scene is almost like layered. These events that are happening on top of and they're very total party scene, random, very realistic. And you're going, man, they should get an award for that, just for that, right? If there ever was such an award, who knows? Maybe there is. Maybe you can explain that.
Yeah, I wanted to have sort of unbridled chaos and not destroy the house too much, because I didn't want to explain that.
Set up the scene a little bit about how this even in the story, this even just took place.
Well, so basically 3 drug addicts hold a family of 3 hostage in their mansion, and then the junkies, the drug addicts, become so comfortable that they decide to throw a party, and they decide to throw the party from hell. And it's they're having a great time, but the poor family, not so much. But I wanted to really push it, and I got very, very lucky. So I'm surrounded by very creative, kind people, and we wrote a list of maybe about 20. And then in the end, I think we got about almost 40 people turn up.
Wow.
And we just told them to lose your inhibitions and go nuts. And there's and that's just what's in the film. There's other bits that aren't in the film. One thing I can tell you is I don't think you guys have this in America, but in Australia, in colleges, they play a thing called Goon of Fortune. So we have wine that's in a casked wine. Do you guys have that?
A cask?
Yeah, it's like a bag of wine. That's describe it. So you're getting 4 liters of wine, and it comes in a bag.
Boxes, and I think yeah,
it's that, and they string that to a clothesline, and they spin it around, and everyone stands around it, and whoever it lands on has to drink it. So that's a game that I had the idea to, and it's in a little bit is in the film, and I had that idea, so I had everyone around, and then it got to a point where we stopped filming and it became a drinking game, and I had to really stop it. Like, it got a little bit out of hand.
Now, do you think, because I have, we spoke about this in the other podcast, but I don't remember bringing this up, but I'm just thinking about this right now. Like, imagine, right, that your friends are getting carried away in this party and they're forgetting, right, that this is being filmed.
That happened a little.
Right. And so had there been a bigger crew and bigger camera and you used lights? Did you use any lights or?
Yeah, I tried to use natural light
Okay, yeah,
wherever I could, and then I had one giant light for pretty much for the party, quite frankly.
right.
Yeah, because it
So
shot it.
so it wasn't the behind the scenes wasn't set up, in the typical movie making scene, Um,
No, no.
yeah. So I'm thinking that probably helped everyone not only stay in character, but actually forget about their character and
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, and they are characters, like
right.
very cool people.
And it's probably good that you left some stuff out, to give a little mercy to some of your friends, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I actually haven't seen it. So the goal is
Oh,
to finally have a cast and crew screening, which would be very long overdue. Aaron, who plays Bryce in the film, wonderfully,
yeah.
he says that I'm making Avatar. It's taking so long to put it together.
Or the Titanic or something,
Yeah,
just
that's right.
some epic movie. Lord of the Rings took 10 years.
Yep. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, it's that's part of what I applaud filmmakers for, is that it's an investment of time and the persistence that it takes for you to stay on it. It's a little easier to just say, "Oh, look, we're going to go shoot a weekend film," which, I used to do that every single weekend a while back. And it becomes a habit, and it becomes, like no big deal. You're working on a film every weekend. You go to work during the week, and then you're working on a film on the weekend because you're passionate about it and you have fun, and uh, it's a thing. We're crazy. We love that stuff, right?
Yeah.
But another thing is to make a feature film and have it, especially on your end. I mean, you were acting in it. You wrote it. So you were part of the pre-production, the production, and the post-production, and the distribution part now too. And that's a
Yeah.
lot. That's quite a lot. That's like you're like a filmmaking hero.
What's more like
Well, and everybody that does that, to me, I think is a hero. Because
well, to go through the whole journey is a real wonderful opportunity to follow a film from conception all the way to the distribution. I mean, it's a real kind of privilege to be able to follow it through at all these different facets because you're learning about everything. I'm learning about what it is to get everyone together. Also, the things that go into the film festival stuff, the things that go into distribution stuff, what's required of you, what do you have to do leading up to it, what don't you do. So I'm learning all that stuff, and it's been a wonderful, wonderful education.
imagine if you're thinking, I'm gonna go sail out in the ocean, get in a sailboat, and I'm gonna sail from here. Let's say your next trip is going from Sydney to San Diego on a sail ship.
Yes.
But now let's change the game. You got to design the ship, and you got to build it. Then you got to get in it. You got to learn how to sail.
Yeah.
It's all on you. You got to sail it over here, and then you got to sail it back. And then you have to store it somewhere.
Terrifying.
Yeah, it just I mean, yes, you get to have a great experience and all that, but there are very few people who will go through every stage of something like this, which is why I'm saying, in a way, it's heroic. There are a lot of people in between that, right? That, even in the film production business, for the most part, it's like, you have your editors, you have your producers, you have your directors, you have your, script supervisors, you have your lighting crew, your lighting crew, you have all that separately. And they usually just play that part in almost every film that they work on.
Mm.
And then you have a handful of people that are heroes like you that will do all the work, you know. And I'm sure there are people listening to this right now who are probably going, yeah, actually it is a lot of work. You know, because you're so passionate about it and you enjoy the challenge of it, you may not really realize that. But I'm here to tell you, Ross, and everybody who's out there who does this, you are a hero. You deserve to be treated like a star. So come to the film festival and I'll do that for you.
and you did, so thank you.
Well, how about that? What was that experience like for you?
Oh, it was wonderful to know that someone out there got it like you did. To know that people respond to it on any level. And it was the first time it's played anywhere. That was its premiere. So, and being from Australia, and I get probably a rejection letter a week. So it was so nice to actually say that it's been accepted. That was wonderful. And something I'll never forget.
You know, it's actually, that's another tooth right there, that everybody gets rejected here and there.
It's what it is. Like, I've really locked into the idea that I'm in the rejection business. So my job is to be rejected. I don't seek it. I don't like it, but it's what it is. And that's, you know, I'm starting to really come around to the idea that it is a numbers game.
Yeah.
You hear it, and I'm a bit silly. A lot of my friends tell me, they go, look, we tell you stuff all the time, but it's not till you lock into things that you're like, oh yeah, I get it. And I can certainly say that for the numbers game thing. I really think the system is designed for you to, you know, to fail. So you just got to find your way around it.
We're born failing. I mean, you know, you know, I mean, you know, we are. I mean, we fall down when we're learning how to walk about 1 million times, and you know, we get up, and then that one time we finally walk, and then we just go with it, you know. But we wouldn't get there until we learn to get up.
Yeah,
know?
Yeah, and I think it's not something that. I mean, look, I know I've met some people who are just like, oh yeah, didn't you know? I get it, and I think I'm probably just a bit late to the party. But I really do feel locked into the idea that it's, you know, it is, that's what I signed up for.
And life is a movie, Ross. So with every fail, just look at it like that one scene in the movie where the guy or the girl, they're just getting closer and closer, but they don't know it.
Well, I mentioned this at the film festival, and something that my mum said, which is people get 3/4 of the way through something and they think they're finished, but they've just got a little further to go. And that's something that I try and remember.
Yeah, it gives you hope. You know,
because it takes an awful lot to get to that 3/4. There's no question. But just to hang in there a little longer.
Yeah, and you could be hanging in there for a little longer, for years, but you're still at it, and that's what I call really persistent people. You know, like those people that work out, and they're never seeing the results. You know, and all of a sudden, way later, they'll just like one day turn around and go, "Oh my God, I got a muscle." No, I'm just kidding. I mean,
that's a good analogy. That's wonderful.
And let's talk a little bit just about I'd like to point out some of the things that I found really incredible throughout the film. As far as, I mean, since we're just like talking you up here, obviously, but I'm being very honest with you though. But you know, it's not easy to direct something. You know, it's easier to write and direct, you know, than to have somebody else direct what you wrote. But then to act it. at the same time. You know, you remember Mickey Harrison?
Yeah, yeah.
So Mickey, she's so awesome. You know, she was, I don't know if you knew how old she was, but and she's okay with me saying that. She's actually very proud of being 84 years old.
Wow, beautiful.
Yeah. And she writes, she gets ideas for stories and she writes them, and she, you know, gets her people together, and then they put together this little film, but she always acts. She likes to act in them. But that's hard. That's hard to do and to keep focused on, you know, because being a director and being an actor, you're both in separate zones, sort of speak.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I could direct I don't know if you can really direct yourself in a play. I don't think that's too good of an idea. That's just my personal. I don't think I could do it. That's all. And then for film, though, I think it's a little easier in that if you're a director, you're creating a world, and then if you're an actor, you've created a world for yourself. You're also doing, as an actor, you're doing the same thing as well. So the two of them, I think, mirror each other.
But you're also directing people when you're directing a film.
Yeah, that's right. One thing I remember vividly is judging by the way we shot it, my scenes came in quite late into the piece. So I had spent a few days just directing the actors and holding the camera. And then when it came to do the denailing scene, so when it came to that, I had to tell myself, don't be the one to ruin your own film. Like, try and up the standard, because everyone was so talented that I didn't want to be the weakest link in my own movie. So I had to really focus in on that. And I'm not a method actor, but I do like to concentrate. So I just need probably about less than 5 minutes just to focus on what I'm doing. And when you're running the set, that's really easy to do.
Yeah. I also gathered from meeting Kimberly, Kim, during the film festival, and you know, she would chime in during your Q&A and things like that. And I think, you know, personally, publicly, that you really lucked out with her, that she really facilitated a lot of that. You just mentioned the set, you know, as well.
Right, yeah. No, I couldn't have done it without Kim. There's no question. So she was going to go to Japan, and then she put it off to help me do the movie, which I'm incredibly grateful for. And the house, particularly, because that's the house I grew up in. So I've got all my memories in that house, and that can kind of throw you when you're an actor, acting in this movie you're making, because it is so familiar. And the job that she did in redesigning it, essentially, I didn't fully recognize it. It really did feel like this other family were living in it, photographs and all. So that's Kim. She created that world for me to play in. She created that sandbox, which is very, very grateful for. And then also the costumes as well. And then the makeup was a thing. So putting that together. And to have a second head, to have someone I could bounce ideas off. Also her encouragement as well. She was always encouraging. Never said no. And then listening to the actors and providing this really safe space for us to all play in. And I think that's kind of a perfect producer.
Yeah, well, she seems extremely talented. And I mean, obviously you knew her and you knew you could trust her with all that. And I think that's part of the thing with film crews. A lot of people don't realize, you know, the behind the scenes stuff in films. Some people don't put out that much, but they really are families, you know.
Yeah.
that you connect, and you have to trust each other, because you can't just go back and reshoot a whole film all over again,
Rather not.
right?
Yeah.
And you have to, and these are talented, even though they are family, they are very talented people and very skilled at what they do. I really feel that filmmakers are a very special characters in this play that we have, which is our world in this stage. You have people in different professions in this world, but I really think filmmakers are quite unique because they work and play together really hard. I mean, really hard. And that's to be commended. Did she ever have to step in and say, oh, ooh, that's not going to work, or hey, don't forget, or anything like that to you guys or to you?
Well, certainly the don't forget. That was that was a regular in the vocabulary. I think most things started with, hey, don't forget. But what specifically, I can't remember. Let's just say most things. But one thing that she said that I really carry with me, in all seriousness, was the first moments before we started filming the very first scene on the very first day. People were arriving to the house, and I said to Kim, admittedly, probably a bit nervous, how do I get the actors to do what I want? I can explain it to them, but how do I get them over that hump? And she said really beautifully, she said, you just have to trust them. I was like, wow, that was such a weight lifted off my shoulders, and it worked, and it continues to work. And I thought that was the perfect thing to say to a director on his first day.
Isn't that so awesome? Because you always wonder if it's like something incredibly complicated that needs to be said, and it's just bringing you back down to simplicity when you're in your complex mind, nervous, right?
Yeah. Look, it was probably as close to the perfect thing that she could have said.
You have your scenes, some of the, oh God, just about, would you say 70 or 90% of your scenes were harsh?
It's funny. So yesterday, Kim told me she needs a classification to go at the front of the film, and it ticks every box. Like, it's got the drug use, it's got the sex scenes, it's got the adult themes. It's
sex, drugs, and rock and roll, right?
Yeah. So to see that actually in print under a rating, that was I would say 75%.
It really was.
Yeah, I hadn't. I'll be honest with you. I hadn't seen it play in front of an audience before, and I hadn't seen it in about maybe 6 months. And I don't think I was fully aware. In all honesty, I wasn't fully aware of how it would play in front of people. So it was nice to see people, wincing at the right moments and being involved. I sat at the back and I saw they were all glued, so that was wonderful.
There are some films that I've seen where there's a little bit of torturing in this movie. All right, guys. Some people are probably now going, "Why can I see this?" And there are others going, "I don't know if I'm going to watch this." But there are some torture scenes, and I've seen a lot of films where that's underplayed a little bit. Like, they truly don't know how to pull those things off, and some people think it's all about the details about how that torture works out. But I think it's more about the acting. The people that are involved in that scene, how everybody winces, right? When you were saying that, at the same time, all the actors are interacting with that particular little moment. I'm not going to tell you which scene it was, but let's just say there was dinner involved.
Yeah. And then there's a bathtub.
Right? Yeah, well,
Yeah.
exactly. And those were two of the 75% of the film. But those were kind of torture moments. And you did that so well. It was so believable.
Yeah, I mean, they weren't all one take. So we did, I think, maybe 3 or 4 of each one. And my idea was always just to kind of not ram it down people's throats, but just to show it and not get too caught up in the grisliness, just to have the audience be eyewitnesses and powerless, and not seeing everything close up. I thought was important. I had every confidence actually in the effects, in terms of like the nails, but I didn't want to ram it down people's throats too much. But I did want them to feel like powerless spectators.
Yeah, it happened. It's like, hey, look at what happened, and it actually happened, and that was that, and that was part of the story. But there was like this whole other story, but whole other part of that story to be told.
Yeah, I know the in terms of the acting it out, every time we'd yell cut, I would quickly run up to the actors and apologize. And I hated seeing them tied up in between shots. I didn't like that.
You're not one of those guys.
I felt terrible a lot. They know that I'm very grateful and also apologize to them a lot. And then one thing that I did do, like when I met, I don't know if I'm going off topic, but one thing when I met the actors, I said to them that I've got 2 rules. One was don't say a specific word, and then the other one was respect each other's processes, because you're all actors, you're all very different people as well. You're all going to have different ways of preparing. So if one of you just needs to have a cigarette before each take, then that's fine. You know, you respect that. And then if another one needs to curl up into a ball and cry, then that's fine too. You don't have to, just respect that as well. Don't make fun of each other in that regard. And in terms of them preparing for those scenes, that's all on the actors. They did such a good job of focusing, and really bringing it to life. And also they moved on very, very quickly. As soon as we yelled cut, it was all hugs and thank yous and let's move on to the next one. Everyone was wonderful.
Yeah, for our listeners, it really was a very realistic film. It was, the found footage type of a film. And the story was done very well. And what was very cinematic about it was the fact that it was a really good story and it kept everyone engaged. It does keep you engaged from the moment you start to see it all the way through to the end. For about, I would say about the first 15 to a half hour of the film, you're not even sure if this is an act. You're starting to, because it's moving along. There's also some other really neat things that you did with the film I want to mention in a second here, but it's just you're engaged almost like you do in a documentary, but it's not a documentary. It's an actual film. It's an actual movie. And I think it was perfect that you used the phone, because you could have done, I've seen other films, other home invasion films and things like that, where they're using a camcorder. But realistically today, who uses a camcorder? Yeah. So it also made this very realistic. And when I first saw the film, when you submitted it, I really did not I was questioning this because you never know what you're going to get in
Yeah.
in a film festival, you know? And you're like, did somebody just send me their murder? Like they sabotage people and they're just trying to make trying to pretend this is a movie? Like what's going on here? um, and the character development, like you said, you know, you basically starved yourself and took a break to lose weight, all these things. Very professionally done. I mean, you look at these junkies, right? Drug addicts in the film, and you know, you have to come to terms with the fact that these are not junkies. These are regular actors who did an amazing, great job in their film. And so, you know, I do think I did not choose the winners. We had a judging panel do that, and I commend them. It was a very, very tough decision between your film and the other film, the other feature film. But I think both films were really, really good. But I really, the effort that you took in your film with your characters and all your actors and crew is just so, so out of this world.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was like a long speech I just gave you. But I did say I want to touch up on something. The effects that you have at the beginning of the film with, you know, the features of the film.
Mm-hmm.
How did you
Yeah,
even come to a decision that this is how you're gonna, you know, begin this or use this?
I don't know if that was it was more of an idea than a
Did it come to you after, like when you were editing it, or what?
No, it was always there in during what I had a script,
Mm-hmm.
and then that was always in the script. I wanted to I watched a lot of home invasion movies and I watched a lot of found footage movies, and I found the found footage movies all started with them explaining away why they're filming. They would always say, you know, oh, I'm just trying out the new camera, and that's what I'm doing. And hey, look at this new camera I got, that kind of thing. So I wanted to find a way to do it visually, and I thought having the phone being turned on for the first time was a way around that. And then in terms of the edit, that was a lot more difficult because there's a lot of little details that go into that, like what color it has to be, what the icon should look like, what should the transitions look like. And that was a great deal of trial and error. And also, on top of that, most importantly, does it all make sense? Because otherwise, it's just a bunch of flashing images. So that took a long time in the edit, particularly.
The sounds also play a part in it.
Yeah, I wanted to. There's one scene that's virtually all audio when Dale is being attacked for the first time, and that was an idea I always had, just to have the audience paint the picture for themselves and just hear it. And then the sound effects will make it sound familiar enough so it sounded like the iPhone, even though it's not. I mean, it's filmed on an iPhone, but I don't own the rights to be able to say
it is,
hey,
but it's not. But not really. But even though it was.
Yeah. So I don't think Apple would. Yeah. So
Bro, yeah, that's another thing, you know.
Yeah. It lives in that gray area. It's a smartphone, I call it.
Right. I mean, it's like, it's there. It's part of it. Give me a break, guys.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I didn't want to start with the Apple logo.
Right.
Or without their permission, at least.
Well, it's always so interesting talking to you. I know that the last podcast was really, really detailed, very in depth. Again, listeners, it's episode 45. Go and listen to it because you'll get the pre-awardee version of this film, and he really goes into detail about a lot of things making the film, including the plots and the twists, right? All those things. But the film does have a pretty interesting. I mean, we're talking about plots and twists. There are many plots and twists in this film, and they all come together at the end. You're captivated throughout the film, but then everything comes together at the end. It's almost like, remember Sixth Sense at the end? And you're going, oh, well, this one is like, you didn't even know there was a oh moment coming. You didn't even know that was coming.
Yeah, there's spoilers. That's right.
Yeah. There were no hidden clues, really. It just all just sort of comes together. It's amazing. And how many, since we were talking about percentages and we're getting good at this now.
Yeah.
What percentage is basically the original true story that it came from? I know Kimberly pointed out what it was and where it was and everything. It was in California, right?
Yeah. It's. I didn't tell. Everything as violent as my film is, it's not as violent as that real story.
Yeah,
that real story is horrendous.
What percentage of the film was like the story? Because I know you based it off of that, but it wasn't a recreation or based on a true account all the way, right? Like
no. The dynamics and the characters are somewhat related. So I would say it's probably about percentage, probably about 60% true, and then 40% creative license. So the ending's not dissimilar, and then the people involved aren't that dissimilar either. And then I went further. Like in the real story, the motivation was they just wanted money, which is in my film, but I did want to emphasize on that a bit more. So it wasn't just about that, because I found that for a film wasn't strong enough.
It was shallow, right?
Well, yeah, and it's it doesn't also make a whole lot of sense to me anyway. So the needlessness of it. So yeah, I would say it's probably about what did I say, 65%?
Yeah, about 60, 40, 65.
Yeah.
That is good to know, because I know at the end when you're rolling the credits, I don't know why we still say rolling, but okay. Well, the credits are rolling. You do compare. A lot of your film, like in the beginning, you're going through pictures, and at the end, you're going through pictures, but you're comparing. You're showing the real pictures, like from newspaper clippings and things like that, right?
Towards the end of the film,
yeah.
That was. I think that comes in with the passage of time before into the third act. Is that what you're referring to?
Well, in the end of the movie, there are newspaper clippings and things like that. While the song is going. By the way, give credit. Let's give some credit to some people, like the music.
Yeah. Look, that's Kim as well. So that's one of Kim's friends. And yeah, that was wonderful. And there's a song, another song that's in there as well, with the Uncle Steve character when he's sitting on the couch. And then the classical music was sort of kind of lifted up to high art, that sort of twistedness. So yeah, the music was very, very fortunate, and I love that last song. Francie, I just remembered Francie. She wrote the music. She did One Flower, and then there was another one that was Blue and Green that plays under Uncle Steve's introduction, and then in the party we had the song called, pardon the French, it's called Bondi Bitch, and it's by a band called The Shots, and I haven't actually got to meet them yet, so I'll try and have them all over for the premiere so they can see what they've got themselves into.
And definitely Kimberly, it just seems like she was the rock, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Supporting. Well, hey, we're reaching an hour, and I know as interesting as it is, I don't want to, overdo this with you and our listeners, but I would say make a note or maybe go back to episode 45 and put it on your queue on your uh, podcast app so that the next time you open it, you're listening to that because I think you'll find it very interesting. There's a lot of details to this film and the story. And honestly, Ross, I can't wait for you to release it to the online world somehow, some way. Even
Yeah.
if it's video on demand or something. I mean, we need to get more people to watch this.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, there's also another part of the story which has to do with drug addiction,
Yes. Yeah, I
and
just have it be all characters enjoying themselves. I wanted it to show the effects of what he's doing.
yeah, and I think it's a very good. Oh, there's a very good message, I think, in this film. If anything positive comes out of this film, it is that. And as hard as it is to watch it, and as realistic as I've been saying that the film is, it's as realistic as life is for a lot of people who are addicted to drugs, especially methamphetamines and heroin and things like that. But basically, more I think meth, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, really any of it.
Well, because
I
some
any good
drugs
description.
actually make people just sort of slump over and you know get pretty useless, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then methamphetamines is completely the opposite. It makes people do really crazy things and the paranoia and all that. I mean, that comes with everything, but um, it just really tears people up.
Yeah. Yeah, from the inside out.
Yeah. All right. So don't hang up, but say goodbye to our friends who are listening.
All right, goodbye everyone. Thank you.
I have one last thing actually.
Yeah,
What would the advice be for anyone who's out there who's an actor who and no actor ever will say I've got all the parts I ever wanted. I'm offered parts left and right. As much as even the most famous ones you can think of, they're not going to say that I mean, they may say that, but it's not true. So what would your advice be as far as maybe doing something like what you did?
to just do it. Set a date of when you want to do it and work towards that date and do it. I think just setting a date is a really, really important first step to getting things done because you can move dates around. That's fine. But it makes you do it. It makes you work towards something. So set a date, I'd say.
That's true. Even if you have to move the date around, there is psychologically something about having to look at the date again and the fact that you're moving it.
Yeah, yeah. And then you can just throw that date around. Go ask the people you want to be involved. Say, are you available on this date? And find a date where they are.
Awesome. All right. Well then, good night, everybody.